You may have heard me mention Tour of the West a couple times on my channel before. It's a trip I've taken 3 or 4 times now. I say 3 or 4 because one of the trips was unsuccessful and ended in me and my friend Casey and I coming home early through Dallas Fort Worth area. That's a whole other video. Sometimes you can find it on my channel, sometimes you can't. Um, the trip covers 5 states and all in the West: Arkansas, Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, and Oklahoma. It's usually around 2,500 miles over the course of 4 or 5 days. I start out from central Arkansas and ride down to Bertram, Texas. That's day one. From there, Tyler and I normally head northwest up to his dad's house in Pueblo. But day one, this part of the trip was pretty smooth, but it was extremely hot that day. The high that day was 103 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what the heat index was. The heat really kind of took it out of me that day, but fortunately, that was the hottest day of the trip, so I kind of got to get it out of the way early. On this day, traffic in Dallas and south of Temple were awful, and I wound up getting to Tyler's house around 3 hours late. I did get to ride past something called the Galt Archaeological Site, which I did a bit of research on and found out this site shows signs of human occupation from as far back as 16,000 years ago. It's one of the few places in the Americas to provide proof of human existence from before the Clovis culture, whatever that means. It's super old. Let's just leave it at that. My Kriega tail bag worked pretty well, but the straps apparently don't play well with my luggage rack from T-Rex Racing because I noticed I'd lost a strap by the time I got to Bertram. I'm guessing it's just because the straps need a round surface to tighten up to, and my rack's surfaces are all flat. That's just something I need to adjust on my own, really, not a fault of the product itself. Overall, this rack from T-Rex Racing is a great product. Fit and finish are great. The install took maybe 20 minutes and it looks nice on the bike. With the NC's gas tank being under the seat and only accessible via lifting the pillion seat, this rack is a must have. It's a huge quality of life upgrade when filling up on a long trip. Last year, I had to continually unstrap and restrap my backpack when filling up. This time, the rack allowed me to put my Kriega further back, meaning I could just lift the pillion seat, fill up, and move on. And speaking of my Kriega, this 30-liter bag has gone with me on multiple trips now, and I have to say it's wonderful. The design of it is really simple, so what you're mostly paying for when you buy one is the sturdy build quality of it and the fact that it's 100% waterproof. The bag is dual layered and the opening rolls onto itself, making sure it's absolutely rainproof. I imagine the only way to make it leak would be to just chuck it in a river and let it sit there, and I guess the only reason that would ever happen would be in a wreck, at which point, who gives a shit? My only gripes about the Kriega are the price and the way the straps can get a little fiddly and overwhelming sometimes. When I bought mine years ago, I'm pretty sure I paid $180 for it. When I looked recently on Revzilla's website, they're up to $220 now. That is a lot of money for what is essentially a dual-layered backpack with a nifty strap system. Speaking of the strap system, the Kriega has a lot of them. There's 2 straps included for if you want to carry yours more like a messenger tote instead of a tail bag. Then there's 4 straps for if you want to use it the traditional way as a tail bag. But to strap it to your bike, there's yet another 4 straps that must be installed on your tail section. That is 10 straps to try to keep up with. And as you trade bikes, as I do often, unfortunately, you'll find that you forget to take all those straps with you, so you wind up buying replacements through Kriega or Revzilla. A replacement kit for the 8 straps needed to use the Kriega as a tail bag runs about $40. And that's expensive in my opinion. Thankfully, if all you need are the 4 straps that go on the tail section, that kit is only $13. Overall, though, I still think the Kriega is a great piece of kit because it cinches down securely to your bike, and it really is nice when you're riding in the rain to know that all your stuff is nice and secured in a watertight package. Day 2 was not hot at all, surprisingly. We left out around 6 a.m. and did about 767 miles that day. It's hard to tell for sure because we took a couple detours to try to avoid some rain. The rain managed to stay with us, though, and we wound up doing about 100 miles in it. It finally let off once we got a little south of Amarillo, but by then my Sena 50S had kind of bit the dust. I could hear everyone, but they couldn't hear me. My voice commands worked just fine, and I later ruled out the microphone by successfully making some phone calls. So this was simply a case of my Sena just crapping out on me. Tyler and Theodosia both have 50Ss just like me, but theirs weathered the rain much better than mine did. And I just have to talk about Sena here for a minute because I kind of hate them. I love being able to talk on rides. It was actually a game changer the first time I tried it back in 2018, but that just makes these comm devices more of a necessary evil. Pairing with the mesh network is a breeze, so that's good. Trying to pair everyone up using Bluetooth used to make me want to jump off a fucking cliff. With mesh, you just hit a button and there you go. If there are any issues, using the Sena Motorcycles app to change channels is easy enough. But I still find doing almost anything with these damn things is pain in the ass. Mine was a huge chore to set up. The issues I ran into trying to get this thing to turn on, charge, pair, update were so numerous and awkward that I can't even remember it all. I know that one of my main problems was that I was trying to set it up using the Sena Utilities app on my phone instead of the Sena Motorcycles app. Sena has a lot of apps, and some of them are now defunct, kind of like the Sena Utilities app. Other than that, when I first took it out of the box, the device wouldn't charge if it was turned on. After figuring out I was using the wrong app and resetting the cable, I was able to get it connected to my Wi-Fi so it could update. After that, the unit was finally able to charge while it was turned on. Overall, my 50S seems to be a lot more user-friendly and solid than my old 20S was, but I still experience a ton of feedback when connected to everyone, and trying to listen to music while in intercom mode still seems like a joke. The music will cut out or lower itself whenever somebody says anything. The problem is that with all the feedback, the Sena thinks we're talking all of the time, so the music is always at a lowered volume, which means it may as well be turned off. Tyler says playing with the settings can help or even fix this, but I'm not exactly motivated enough to fiddle with this fucking thing anymore, and I already have to. So, obviously, the weatherproofing on the 50S is negligible at best. Out of 3 50Ss that day, 1 crapped out and 2 survived. So you could say you have a 1 in 3 chance of yours failing on you should you get caught in some weather like we did that day. We tried to take a detour once we got to Raton, New Mexico, because Raton Pass had massive traffic jams going on. But apparently the traffic gods just weren't on our side because we got turned around by local law enforcement as we tried to leave town and wound up doing Raton Pass anyway. It was a total clutch fest. Through that area, but we finally got to where it opened up a little bit. We got to Pueblo West after a couple hours and made it to Tyler's dad's house where he had some brats for dinner. Because of all the detours and traffic delays, we arrived a little late, but we still made it in before it got dark, so there's that. I've come to just expect motorcycle trips to always take a little longer than expected. Day 3, we rode towards Canyon City and headed north up Phantom Canyon Road. Theodosia was on her Kawasaki Z400, and I was impressed that even though it was her first time doing any off-road, she and the Z were just perfect all day. It really shows that any bike can be an adventure bike if you're brave enough. Phantom Canyon Road is right at 30 miles, and it didn't take long before we got to Victor, Colorado. Victor is an old gold mining town, and paired with its neighboring town, Cripple Creek, represents the second largest gold mining district in the U.S. And speaking of Cripple Creek, that was our next stop. Here, we walked around the mini casinos and ducked into a couple of gift shops for souvenirs. You wouldn't know that there were so many casinos in town though, because all their storefronts use a style that make it all look like an old west town full of shops. But in Cripple Creek, it just so happens that all those shops may lead you to the Brass Ass or Bronco Billy's casino. And speaking of Bronco Billy's, we stopped there to grab a bite to eat at Baja Billy's Cantina. I got a chili verde burrito that was excellent. Tyler got some tacos that were super hot to the point that he tried to give me his leftovers and I couldn't finish them. And you know it's hot when I can't even finish one taco. After that, we headed west to a town called Guffey. This was a really neat looking but super small mountain town. The population is only 111. We rode past some nice looking places where music was playing and people were dancing. Towns like Guffey, Victor, Cripple Creek, and even Cloudcroft, New Mexico are why I enjoy being out west so much. There's a lot of small mountain towns that seem like really fun places to spend some time. Finally, that day we did Skyline Drive in Canyon City, which is always one of my favorite places to go. This place was built in 1905 by prison labor. And it amazes me that today you can go up there and there's no guardrails or anything to keep you from just yeeting right off the side. It always feels a bit sketch up there on a bike, but it's also a ton of fun and doesn't last that long. It's a beautiful spot and I always get a lot of great pictures up there. Later that evening, we drove out to Liberty Point to see the sunset out by the reservoir. It was a really impressive view and I got a lot of great pictures, but believe it or not, the gnats and mosquitoes were just carrying us away, but it was still a really neat spot with amazing views. For day 4, we took a break from the bikes and rode in Tyler's dad's pickup to Pikes Peak. Pikes Peak is 14,115 feet tall, so you definitely feel the thinner air up there. It was another beautiful spot, and I was able to take just a ton of pictures. And we also saw Royal Gorge and later on ate at a place called McGinty's in Divide, Colorado. McGinty's was super good food and we all really enjoyed our meals there, so much so that I forgot to take any pictures. Later that evening, we walked along the Arkansas River in downtown Pueblo and ate at a Bingo Burger and got some ice cream. By this point, I was getting ready to head home. I knew I had a hard day of riding ahead of me, really within just a few hours, and was anxious to get started. Day 5, 4th of July. I left out around 4 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. This was like leaving at 5 a.m. Central Standard Time. I wanted to get a good start on the day because I had over 900 miles before getting back to Central Arkansas. I didn't want to wind up getting in well after dark or anything. I usually go back the way I came through Raton Pass, but for whatever reason, my GPS wanted me to head east more than anything. So I headed out by myself to La Junta. I wasn't exactly sure where this route would lead me, but I was excited to find out. If I had known how sparse the gas stations would be in this region of the country, I would have filled up in La Junta, but I didn't. Somewhere around Springfield, Colorado, I finally found a gas station after a good bout of range anxiety. I was down to my last bar of fuel on my fuel gauge, and it was flashing at me by the time I stopped in Springfield. 170 miles on that tank. It was out here where I found the Comanche National Grasslands, and I have to say this was a major highlight of my trip because I totally wasn't expecting it. This place is beautiful in its own ways and has a vibe totally different from the Rockies. I stopped multiple times to read kiosks and take pictures. Apparently this whole area used to be an ocean because not only have they found shark fossils out here, they have found megamouth shark fossils, which is just insane. Those are deep water sharks, and they found them way up here in southeast Colorado and northern Oklahoma. Once I made it out of this area with a full tank of gas, I began to trek across Oklahoma, something I've done many times before on the interstate, but this time I was taking a new route. I followed US 412 across the top of Oklahoma and saw the Glass Mountains, which kind of blew my mind. All these years, and who knew I would wind up actually really enjoying my time riding through Oklahoma. I didn't enjoy running into some toll booths though, but I think I shorted y'all a dime on the Cimarron Turnpike. The check is in the mail. At 8:43, I made my last gas stop of the trip in North Little Rock. I was just in time to see the Independence Day fireworks going off over the Arkansas River. In all this, it was another great trip to Colorado and another great trip on my NC750X. Overall mileage for the trip was 56 miles per gallon over 2,399 miles. This bike continues to endear itself to me by being good at everything I ask it to do. It's cheap, it's efficient, it's reliable, it's fun. I didn't wear out a set of tires this time like I normally do, but my clutch cable and drive chain did need adjusting by the end of the trip, which honestly is a small price to pay considering the sheer scope of everything that we did over these 5 days. I hope to do it again next year, and I hope you'll be there too. Safe riding out there. Thanks for watching.